What's going on YouTube? Evan here with Cloud9 Aquariums. Today I really want to continue the series of multiple tank syndrome with planning a fish room. It's really important to do, like I've said with everything else, you really got to start with planning. So, first step of planning. Why do you even want a fish room? I mean really, this is actually a legitimate question. Why do you want a fish room? Definitely one of the reasons that I wanted a fish room is to show you guys. Now, not this. Oh, look at me! I have all these cool tanks. Look at me! I spend so much time cleaning tanks. They don't even have a life. No, that's not really what I mean. What I really mean is that I got all these tanks, and there's a lot of cool stuff that I can show you guys because of them. Do I want to have these for the rest of my life? No, honestly, I really don't. I would love to keep it down to 3 to 5 tanks probably, just because I kind of enjoy being able to spend time on just a couple tanks and really make them blossom and make them look awesome, as opposed to kind of stretching myself thin. If my daily life is really busy, it can be difficult to take care of 15 tanks. So that's something you want to consider. Is definitely, why do you really want one? So that's one of my reasons. Another reason is I was really interested in breeding. I liked being able to breed different types of and varieties of fish, and I thought it was really cool. I think it's unique to watch. Especially just the different, between live bears, you got your egg layers, you've got your lifetime partners and your non-life. It's interesting. Everything has its different way of doing things. Some of them have courtship rituals. Some of them actually, are very territorial. So it's definitely interesting to watch the different species of fish interact and see how it goes on. So to me, it's more interesting. Another reason that I know a lot of people have too is just they really want to have a lot of different things, and they're like me where they don't want to have a Noah's Ark tank per se. So you don't want to have one tank that's got 2 of this kind, 2 of that kind. Oh, I'll take 2 of those, and I'll take 2 of next thing you know, you have 2 of every single kind of fish in the fish store, but none of them are really acting like each other. They're kind of just swimming around, and they're kind of doing their own thing. And it's not even enjoyable to watch for some of us. For me, I really don't even like watching those tanks because there's just too much going on. There's no symmetry. There's no natural balance going on. I like to have just a couple different species in a tank. I think it looks great. Because you get your species that are really super schooling. Let's say for instance you got 2 cardinal tetras. They may just kind of dart here and dart over there, and they're not really doing much. But you get just a mass of them. Anywhere from, let's say, 6 to 30 or 40. Come on, it's awesome. They're just doing their thing, and they're all staying together. And that's a schooling fish. You wouldn't see that if you only had a couple of them, and you had 2 of these and 2 of those. So that's kind of what I like about having a fish room, is that you get to see how these different fish interact, but you can put a clump of them in one tank and see how they interact, as opposed to only being able to have a couple of each one in one tank specifically. So really what I want you to ask yourself is, why do you want one? Are you interested in breeding? Are you interested in are you doing it for money? Do you want to not only breed fish and sell them for money, or are you looking to perhaps set up a huge growing system and grow all these aquatic plants that you can sell to the fish stores around you? Maybe that's what you're in for. Maybe it's in for money. Maybe you just want to have stuff that's maybe you have an aquarium club that requires you to have 5 tanks, something like that, and you only got 3, so you want to set up 2 more tanks just so you can get part of this club, and so people can come over and check out your tanks. Maybe you think you're going to be cool because you got so many tanks. Who doesn't like a guy with so many tanks, right? Your reasoning is your reasoning, but definitely ask yourself, why do you want it? Who are you going to affect? I really don't think many people think about this before they really get into the hobby. It just seems kind of silly, especially when you only have a couple tanks. 1 to 3 tanks, you're not really affecting that many people, because a lot of people, let's say for instance, you're not an adult, okay? You live with your parents or something like that. Maybe you're an adult who lives with your parents. I don't know. Who am I to judge? But I'm just saying, let's say you live with, or let's say even if you're an adult, so that way we don't leave anybody out of here. You rent a room or something, and you live with a bunch of other people. Okay, so you're going to affect everybody in this house. It's not just you living in your own specific house. If you have 3 tanks or whatever, maybe have them all in your own bedroom, okay? Not a big deal. Who are you affecting? Yourself. You're stubbing your toe every time you walk in on your stand or something like that, okay? You're just affecting yourself, no big deal. Now let's say, you're one of those guys, and you put a fish tank room in the house, okay? Maybe it's not a big deal if you just have 1 room, doesn't affect anybody else in the basement, nobody uses the basement, who cares? Not a big deal. Now let's talk about if you, or at least think, what if you're the type who doesn't really have one specific room, but you still want a lot of tanks? Okay, so then you're kind of like me, where I got a fish tank room and then I got fish tanks in every single room. That's a whole other problem. But seriously, so now I'm affecting everybody. Anybody who's living in the house is now going to be affected by every single tank. And it may seem silly to you, but I mean, this isn't something like, okay, it's a fish tank, it's not really going to smell, it's not like some animals that smell or something like that, but it's a visual thing. I mean, if you're not taking care of your tanks, you got to remember, they're going to be dirty eventually. If you're not taking care of them, it's going to be kind of ugly. So let's say you live with people, they want to have their friends over, and they're like, wow, I mean, the house may be clean, but your fish tank is kind of ugly, so we don't want to sit in this room and look at this cruddy fish tank. I mean, that could seriously happen. So you're going to affect people around you. And maybe you're going to affect people around you in the fact that you're going to ignore them because you have so many tanks that your time is completely chewed up, and so you just push people to the side. Okay, you don't care about your friends anymore, you don't care about your loved ones. Now you're just spending all your time just engrossed in your tanks, and lo and behold, you have no friends anymore. Your family kind of ostracizes you. I mean, think about this. This could happen. I mean, this could be a problem. This could be an epidemic. I mean, I'm not trying to scare everybody away from this, but you really need to think about these kind of things because they are going to happen. If you're not very good with your time management, keep it to under 3 tanks. I mean, seriously, you don't want to get overwhelmed. This can definitely be something that's overwhelming, and you not only owe it to yourself and people around you, but you owe it to the fish too. Because I mean, I know this seems silly, and people are like, oh, you buy or you win your goldfish at the carnival or whatever, and they die the next day. Big whoopie-doo that day. I mean, it's a live animal. I mean, what would you say if they start winning dogs and cats at the festival, and people are like, oh, whatever, I didn't feed it for a week and it died. Whoa, big whoopie-doo that day. Flush it down the toilet. I mean, seriously, people would care. I'm just putting it out there. Just putting it out there. So kind of going back with what I already said, do I have a time? I put a huge star next to this because it's really important, okay? Do you have the time? I mean, a lot of us nowadays, I mean, in our society especially, we're extremely busy. I mean, all of our phones got to be the fastest things out there so I can multitask and do as many things as possible. I mean, how many people don't text and drive anymore? How many people are got to be, I mean, seriously, I've been driving, I've seen someone painting their nails, talking on the phone, texting at the same time, trying to drive apparently. I mean, drinking their coffee, spilling all over the lap. Oh, I got my donut over here. I mean, come on, dude. Everybody's got all these things they got to do around them, and they just don't have the time to do it all at one time. I mean, think about it. You can paint your nails at your house. You can take your phone call, when you get to wherever the freak you're going. You can eat your donut or whatever at the restaurant. Oh, God forbid you don't go through the drive-thru today. Oh, what will you ever do? I mean, seriously, these are some things you got to think about. So do you actually have the time? If you're one of those people who is so engrossed in everything around you, you have this, that, and the other thing, that you barely have time to take care of one tank, but now all of a sudden you want 10 tanks. Well, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but it's not like, okay, one tank, I do my water change, it takes me an hour, so it's going to take me, 2 hours to do 10 tanks? Oh. And I'm not saying, okay, one tank, let's put this in perspective, because this is something, I mean, it's not like a math thing where, okay, one tank takes 1 hour, so that means 2 is going to take 2 hours. No, because when you have more tanks, your setup for one tank is you got to get all your stuff out, you got to put it all away, you got to get this set up, and you got to get this chemical, and do this and that and the other thing. When you got multiple tanks, you don't just do one tank at a time, okay? And this is one thing we're going to cover way down in here, it's going to be awesome. So there's ways to speed it up. So of course, it's not like if you have 10 tanks, it's going to take 10 hours to clean them. But still, it's definitely time. You need to make sure you have time to do everything. Don't stretch yourself thin, okay? You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to your fish. That's all I got. End of rant. Where are you going to put it? Okay? Seriously, are you going to do the whole house thing? One in every single room? Do you have some place like a basement perhaps? Do you have a spare bedroom? So where are you going to put it? And when you're kind of thinking about this, definitely, is the floor strong enough? Now, this really doesn't apply to, you got 3 or 4 tanks, whatever. Especially if they're smaller tanks, not so big of a deal. But if you're starting to build rack systems like behind me, and you're doing big tanks, 55 stacked on top of each other, or hundreds even, yada yada, you're talking some serious weight. So basement's great, don't have to worry about it. Floor is going to be strong enough, not a problem. But if you're talking, second floor, things like that, you want to make sure, is my floor strong enough? Is it going to support it? That's actually something you really need to think about, especially, those of us who have some very large tanks, I'm not one of them, but if you have like a 300 plus gallon tank, or, even really honestly, I would start thinking about it at about 220. You really want to start thinking, okay, I got some serious weight here. Is my floor even going to be able to support it? Um, I guess another thing we got to think about too is water and the drain convenient. I mean, this seems kind of simple, electric, things like that. I mean, for a fish tank room, you got to have electric for all your filters and heaters and your lights. You got to have, water convenient to fill them up. You got to have a drain. I mean, seriously. Because again, let's say you do a basement thing, but your closest drain is upstairs. Guess what? Siphons don't run upstairs. That's a problem. Now, of course, I mean, come on, it's a problem. Is it the end of the world? No. Guess what? I'm in the basement. I don't have a drain down here. How do I do it? Wouldn't you like to know? I'll tell you. But seriously, so there's always a way to pump your water upstairs. Not the end of the world. But again, is that something you want to do? Do you want to have to buy a pump now and have to drain your tanks into a bucket to pump them up the stairs? That's definitely something to consider, as always. What kind of fish are you going to keep? When you're planning something, get a paper and pencil out now. All these other ones you can start doing in your head. What kind of fish do you want to keep? This is very, very, very crucial. Because when you're thinking about what kind of fish you want to keep, okay, now let's say you want some of these fish, you only need a couple of them in a tank, so you can do some smaller tanks, yada yada. Now let's say you want to do some huge schooling fish, okay, now you're talking about some bigger tanks. Now let's say you're talking, I just want some little neons and thick guppies and things like that. Okay, now you're back down to a smaller tank. Oh, but I want to do, a huge tank with 50 Oscars in it. Well, you're talking a pond now, so really think about what kind of fish you want to keep, and don't say, okay, my minimum tank size, I'm going to buy all minimum tank sizes for all these, or what's the minimum for the juvenile, and then when I get more money, I'll buy bigger tanks to upgrade them as it goes. No. You really need to make sure that you start out with your head above the water. Don't start out with you're just kind of barely floating there and you're breathing for air. No, you want to make sure that you got plenty of leeway, because let's say something pops up and you don't have the money. Now your fish are growing too big. You don't got the room for it. Oh, you got now you got all these fish in one tank, and it's just a nightmare because they're over polluting the water. You have no way to clean it because you can't buy a bigger tank. So it's a problem. Don't screw yourself right off the bat. Basically, I mean that's really honestly what it comes down to. Plants. Do you want to do plants? Seems simple, but do you want to do a bunch of dirty tanks? Do you want to do bare bottom tanks? Are you interested in breeding? Okay, I've already kind of touched on breeding, but here's the 3 biggest things about breeding that somehow, for those of us who haven't breed, brood, I don't know, who haven't done that thing yet, okay, here's the 3 biggest things that we need to think about. Where am I going to house them? Okay, and that's like, oh, okay, I got 2 angelfish, I got a pair, perfect, awesome. Okay, then they have the babies. Guess what? They're going to try to eat them. You got to get them out of the tanks. Now you got to have another tank. And guess what? Where are you going to sell them? Oh, wait, but this goes back because you can't even sell them yet because they're too small. You can't just have these fish and these little tiny babies and then sell them to the store. No. Now you got to raise them. Okay, so now we got to raise them. Oh, but guess what? Now your breeding pair is breeding again, so now you need to have 3 tanks. So some fish grow really quick. It's awesome. Bam, 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 and you're done. They're out. Guppies, pretty quick. I only got to have 2 tanks. I'm good to go. Not a big deal. Angelfish, you got to have 3 tanks for them, believe it or not. 1 for the breeders. Well, actually, 4 if you count the actual, if you're pulling your eggs out. So let's say, for argument's sake, we'll say 4. Okay, so you gotta have 1 for the breeding pair. You gotta have something to actually put your eggs in so that they can hatch, and then you gotta have 1 for the freshly newborns, right, as you're raising them up. And then when your guys are laying another eggs, okay, those guys can go in your jar again, and they're getting ready to hatch, and they'll have another one, so you're swapping. So guess what? When those guys hatch, you can't just put them in the other ones because the other ones are too big and they're going to eat them already. So now but they're not big enough for the pet store to take them yet, so then you got to move those into another tank, a bigger one. So think about this things. I mean, they don't just pop out 1 or 2. You're talking like 100 to 200 fish. This is not like, it's not rocket science, but yeah, think about it. So where are you going to sell them? Okay, Craigslist, awesome idea. If you have your local groups on Facebook, great idea. If you have pet stores, especially local ones, they'll take them a lot of times. Petco, but one of those things is really good to think about, and this has to do with my 3rd point, is do they have them already? Especially if you're trying to sell them to other people, or actually other stores really. Is this a fish that they always have? There's certain fish they get in every once in a while, okay, because maybe they won't have them, and you can just be like, oh hey, guess what? I have those fish that you don't have, that you usually have. Perfect. But if they always have them, chances are they're not going to buy them from you because they already have them, and they probably got them from a breeder who gave them to them for a great price. So unless you're going to give them away for free, and don't flush them. I mean, every time I hear like, oh, you know what, I had too many, so I flushed them. What? Like, these are living creatures, so people could be enjoying them. Even if you gave them away for free, they'd be doing better off than flushing them. I mean, come on. So, think about those things when you're talking about breeding, especially. Don't get in over your head. Is it really fun? Is it awesome? Yes, definitely. Can you keep some? I mean, sure, you can have your breeding pair, you can have the babies, you can raise them and do it. I mean, well, you can't really see it in the thing. Actually, right here, I'm keeping guppies, okay? I actually get rid of these every once in a while, too, because I end up having too many and I kind of ship them off. But, I mean, Boesemani's. I breed Boesemani's and then I keep them because I love rainbow fish. So it's not another, I guess that's another option for breeding. You can keep them, too. Can you afford it? Back to the planning thing. Can you afford a fish room, okay? It's not only the fish, and it's not only the tanks. You gotta think about the electricity, and the food, I mean the water, I guess, because water does cost something, usually unless you're on well water. The chemicals, so the more fish you have, just the more cost it is. It's not gonna be a drastic, ridiculous thing, but it does, it does cost money. So make sure you're not stretching yourself thin with funds, you definitely always want to be able to have your emergency fund and some stuff to do some fun things around town with too. Don't just focus your life on fish. Which I know this is crazy because I have a fish tank channel. I'm telling you not to focus your life on fish, but seriously, that's how it goes. And I guess the last thing, which for me is the most important thing, how are you going to enjoy it? For me, I have multiple ways of enjoying this. I mean, this room right here, I get to enjoy because I come down here and I feed them and I sit here and I get to watch them eat and I enjoy it. I get to make videos with these guys and check them out and see what's going on. I get to see the new babies and things like that. But this room, I don't have a way of sitting down here and just chilling. I mean, I can come down here and stand around and do maintenance on them and watch them while they eat. But then I go upstairs and I do my thing. So that's why I like to have my tanks upstairs, around the house, because it's like I said, I got a reef in my dining room, so I can watch them, and it's really interesting to me. It's one of the most interesting tanks, so I like to watch that because I spend a lot of time in the dining room. I mean, believe it or not, I do eat here and there. And then the living room, I have a couple tanks there. Especially the more planted ones, the ones that I think are more beautiful, I guess. You don't put an empty bare bottom tank, that's got your breeding pair and a couple little babies that don't even have color yet, in a beautiful setting, where you're gonna have all your friends and stuff. I mean, that's not what they want to look at. They want to look at your planted tanks, which are just growing and they're magnificent. You got all your beautiful colored little rainbows over here that are constantly going back and forth. That's something you want to look at. You want to spend some time with. And you know what? Honestly, you got a TV. Here's your commercial break right here, folks. Okay, it never stopped. You're watching TV commercial break. What's up, fish tanks? Checking it out. You're entertained all night. It's great. It's fantastic. But then you never want to leave. So just a warning. I mean, bedroom. Who doesn't want to wake up to a fish tank in the morning or fall asleep watching the fish tanks? I mean, seriously. So how are you going to enjoy your fish room? A lot of people I know, if they have a bigger area, a lot of times they'll do all their tanks around the edge, and they put like either you can put a TV in there or even just a couch. Just a couch, listen to some music, sit there and chill out and watch the fish tanks. I mean, it's awesome. It's like TV. Who even needs a TV anymore? You have fish tanks. It's good, clean fun, and honestly, you don't have to worry about what's on TV anymore because you're just like, I'll just watch this, I know what's going to happen, and it's fun. It's interesting. You'd be surprised at things you learn from just watching a tank. But I've ranted long enough, but seriously, plan a fish room. Take your time. It's really important to plan it because otherwise you're going to get in way over your head and you're going to regret it. And I don't want anybody to regret this hobby because it's a great hobby. And we all need to make sure we have tons of fun doing it because, as always, we're really about keeping things fun, keeping things simple. We don't want to stress out about the hobby. It's not what it's about. It's about relaxing, enjoying it. So I hope this video kind of just gives you some things to think about, and I hope you really are actually thinking about this, before you make that move out there, or even if you have it, you're starting to reconsider some things, and oh yeah, that's a good idea. So definitely stay tuned. We got a lot of cool stuff happening. If you're not already part of it, get on the Facebook group, check us out. And if you're not already, again, subscribe to the channel. I mean, come on, you want to keep watching these multiple tank syndrome videos and watch me make fun of people who can't stop buying tanks like like myself. But seriously, we have a blast here. So subscribe if you haven't already, and like always, hope this video starts to bring you and your fish tanks a little bit closer to Cloud9.